It was supposed to be a routine patrol in international waters. The mighty U.S. aircraft carrier, USS Liberty, flanked by its escorts, cut through the cold waves of the North Atlantic with an aura of invincibility. On board, thousands of sailors went about their duties, unaware that within hours they would face the most terrifying test of their lives. Suddenly, radar screens lit up. Dozens of contacts appeared, fast-moving, approaching in formation. It wasn't a drill. A fleet of Russian warships, bristling with advanced missile systems, had emerged from the fog of the horizon. The crew froze. The uneasy silence of the command deck was broken by a chilling announcement. Multiple Russian destroyers and cruisers detected, and they're closing in fast. The air grew heavy with tension. The captain of the Liberty immediately ordered battle stations. Fighter jets roared to life on the carrier's deck, their engines shaking the steel beneath the sailors' boots. Below decks, sailors strapped into their stations, while the carrier's escort ships powered up their Aegis missile defense systems. This was no longer a standoff. It was a clash of two superpowers at sea. Then, without warning, the Russian fleet launched the first strike. A swarm of sea-skimming missiles shot across the waves, screaming toward the American ships at near supersonic speed. The ocean turned into a battlefield of fire and smoke. Explosions lit up the night as U.S. destroyers intercepted as many missiles as they could, their phalanx guns spitting a wall of blazing rounds into the sky. But some still slipped through. A U.S. cruiser rocked violently as a missile slammed into its hull. Alarms wailed. Fire crews scrambled. The attack was ruthless, calculated to overwhelm even the strongest defenses. And yet, the Liberty refused to fall. The captain gave a single order that would change everything. Launch the strike group. Now. In an instant, the deck erupted into chaos. F/A-18. Super Hornets thundered into the skies, streaking low over the waves before splitting off into attack formations. The U.S. pilots knew the odds were brutal. Russian warships were shielded by layers of anti-air defenses. But if the carrier went down, it would be a devastating blow to American naval power. But the Russians weren't backing down. Their ships unleashed another barrage, and one missile streaked dangerously close to the Liberty. For a breathless moment, it seemed certain the carrier would be hit. But then, out of nowhere, one of the U.S. escort destroyers maneuvered directly into the path. The missile struck its hull in a blinding flash. The destroyer was torn apart, but its sacrifice saved the carrier. The crew of the Liberty watched in silence, their hearts heavy, as the ship that shielded them slipped beneath the waves. And still, the Liberty stood. Her crew patched damage, fought fires, and manned every station without rest. Engineers worked feverishly to keep engines running at full power. Medics rushed from one wounded sailor to the next, turning makeshift corridors into emergency wards. The ship was more than steel. It was a living organism, and everyone on board was fighting to keep it alive. Gradually, the tide began to turn. U.S. aircraft tore holes in the Russian formation, crippling their ability to maintain coordinated attacks. One Russian cruiser, struck by multiple missiles, erupted in a massive fireball that could be seen for miles. Another, badly damaged and listing, broke formation and withdrew. For the first time since the attack began, hope spread across the decks of the Liberty. But victory was not without cost. Hundreds of sailors were dead or missing, and one of America's finest escort ships had been lost forever. Every survivor carried the weight of sacrifice. The sea itself seemed to mourn, littered with burning debris and oil slicks spreading across the waves. And then, something completely unexpected happened. Just as both fleets prepared for another round, a Russian signal broke through the static of American communications. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It was a request for a ceasefire. The entire command deck of the Liberty fell silent. After hours of brutal combat, Russia had asked for talks. Was it a trap, a desperate ploy, or a signal that even in the darkest moments, cooler heads still prevailed? The captain weighed the options. If he refused, the battle would rage on, and countless more lives could be lost. If he agreed, he risked giving the enemy a chance to regroup and strike again. For a long, tense moment, every sailor held their breath, waiting for his decision. Finally, he gave a nod. The Liberty would stand down, for now. The official records would later claim that diplomacy took over, that both sides stood down to avoid triggering an all-out war. But the men and women aboard the Liberty knew the truth. That night, they had stood on the edge of World War III, and somehow, against all odds, stepped back. Whispers spread in the following weeks. Some said the Russians pulled back because they realized the Americans had more reinforcements on the way. Others believed a secret back-channel message had been exchanged between Washington and Moscow, warning of the catastrophic consequences of escalation. And there were even rumors that one of Russia's own admirals refused to give the order for a final strike, knowing that it could lead to nuclear retaliation. Whatever the reason, the world would never know the full story. The details of the battle were sealed, buried deep in classified files. But for those who lived it, the memory would never fade. They had seen courage, sacrifice, and resilience in its purest form. The Liberty returned to port battered and scarred, but not broken. Her arrival was met with silence at first, as families searched the crowd for loved ones who would never return. Then came cheers, tears, and the bittersweet pride of survival. The ship had become a legend, not because of victory, but because of endurance. To this day, the battle remains shrouded in secrecy. What exactly caused the Russian fleet to retreat? Why did they ask for peace just when they seemed ready to strike again? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain: the U.S. carrier that refused to die that night became a symbol of survival, sacrifice, and the razor-thin line between war and peace. And if history ever repeats itself, the world may not be so lucky the next time. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss out on more hard-hitting analyses. The world is changing, and it's time we keep up. Stay tuned and stay alert.